What's happening, good people? Welcome to the channel. I'm Wes, aka Mr. Budget Watch, and well, today is the review of the Pagani PD1716 BB36 homage, the one I have been waiting for. But I have sort of created this own little hype bubble in my head, but did it actually live up to that? That's what we're going to find out. So this one was kindly provided by the Pagani Design official store. It does not have to go back, but that, as you know, is not going to change my opinion, as you'll see in this review. Link for this will be in the description if you're interested. So let's kick things off with the sizes, and coming in at 37.2, this new release is great for us folks with slim wrists. So this is backed up by a really nice and compact 44.2 lug to lug. The diameter including the crown is 39.6, the thickness is 12mm on the dot, and the lug width is spot on at 20mm. Rounding up the specs is the signed screw down crown that measures in at 5.9mm. The case, bracelet and crown are all 316L stainless steel. The dial is protected by a synthetic sapphire crystal that has some decent clear AR coating, which is, quite a surprise. So sized up for me, it weighs 123 gram. 100 meter water resistant is perfectly fine, as well as this is more sporty every day than it is a diver. The bezel is solid, fixed, high polish, and has quite a nice little downslope to the top of the case. So let's talk, the look, and we're going to talk about that lovely blue dial. Not quite Tiffany, but still a nice colour. And well, the finish here we have is a matte one, and I think it actually really pops in pretty much all situations that aren't dark. Now I know people are getting a bit bored of this colour, which is understandable as it's literally everywhere, though I can't deny it's nice. There is other colours available if you do want to check them out as well, but they do all have a date window, so take that as you will. On the dial you'll spot a pretty cleanly done half train track style minute track. Wow, that was a mouthful. And that does stand out really nicely against that blue dial. The indices are all applied and very well aligned with the markers, I must say. These are all Lume filled, but a little bit more on that later on. They all feature a polished metal accent, which does sort of elevate the quality a little bit. So at the 12 o'clock you'll spot the pretty much iconic feature from the original, which has been of course borrowed here, the upside down slender triangle. At the 3, 6 and 9 are a small rectangle, which again has that same high polished border. Everywhere else you get some pretty bog standard circles, again with the same treatment, and all are pretty well done. The hands are again borrowed from the original, but the actual standard is pretty solid. There's no major roughness or major imperfections that I can see. So we do have the iconic snowflake hour, a slender fence post minute, and a needle style with a mini snowflake for the seconds. So all seemed pretty much well done here. You've got a nice clean dial, nice colour, applied indices, all is good. But you might have noticed something. There is a little issue, and that is the colour mismatch. Yep, there is a slight discrepancy between the hands and indices. So they both are white, but they have a slightly different hue. You will notice that there is a slight green hue to the indices, where the hands have a slight blue. It's not massively drastic, but it is noticeable. The side profiles are pretty much plain and uninteresting, to be fair. They're both high polished and done to a good standard. The mid case has a little bit of a curvy profile, which does add some interest, but it's still pretty plain. The other side of course has that signed and screw down crown, which is again high polish and really sort of fits in quite nice. And that's pretty much your lot. So finally to the Caseback, and it's an exhibition style. To be honest, I don't see any point here, as it's just a Seiko NH. No hate towards that, it's a really good, solid and reliable movement, but a looker it is not. I'd have happily had a slightly thinner watch with a solid Caseback, but that's just my personal preference. But at least the glass is mineral, it's screwed down and it has minimal information, so take that as you will. All is pretty well in regards to the case. We have all those good points I've mentioned, but how about that bracelet? Well, it's a bit of a musical mixed bag. As spotted in the unboxing, it's a very jangly one. Not quite as bad as those cheap Seiko ones, but it's definitely not up to their usual standards. It has all the right ingredients. We've got solid end links, the screw-in links, solid links and a milled clasp, but the execution is really where it sinks like a badly done souffle. Starting with the finishing, and the first complaint has to be the polished outer links. Just why? I don't mind a tasteful chamfer here and there, but a full-blown polish outer link is just a real no-go, especially when they put them next to some, nicely done brush lugs. Just too much of a mismatch. And it just starts to go even more downhill from here. The end links wobble quite bad and aren't as tight as some of their other models. The flex in the bracelet is pretty bad too and doesn't inspire much confidence long term. And then there's the gap between the links, which is, I assume, the main culprit for the said flex. There is one glimmer of hope though, and that is the milled clasp. It has 3 usable micro adjustments, it's pretty solid and well finished. So yeah, it's actually a bit of a redeeming feature. I actually think it's from a different watch of theirs, which is okay as it's a really solid clasp. Now to the final issue. Yep, there's another one. The finishing. The polish is solid, but the brushing in the mid links is not done to their usual standards. It's not perfectly linear, and not the best quality either, and it does actually take away from the overall quality of the bracelet even more. Now, I did actually ask Pagani if they changed things, and they said no. They were really adamant that nothing has changed, but actually comparing it to their other Tudor homages I've had on the channel, and it's clear they have cut some corners here. So now to the one place they haven't really cut corners, and that is the movement. Unfortunately, it's not the NH38, and we've had to make do with the NH35. Probably a cost-saving exercise. Not a bad thing, but I think a 38 would have been better, as there's no date here. That aside, the specs are pretty much the same as every other Seiko NH movement. 21,600, 24 dual hacking, hand and auto winding, 41 hour power reserve, an accuracy of -20 to +4 seconds per day. But how does it feel? Well, it's pretty much like any other Seiko really. Smooth in action, quick set date, robust, reliable, and more accurate than the spec suggests. So there's no issues with the movement nor the crown either, as both are really solid feeling like mentioned already. So we're not going to dwell on that anymore, and we're actually going to talk about the on-wrist experience. And actually, surprisingly, the bracelet somewhat redeems itself here. Yeah, the quality has slipped, but I have to be truthful, it's really comfy. The old Pagani bracelets were just a little bit too snug and a bit too tight because they didn't sort of flex it as much as this new one. But this one is just, like I said, more flexible. It conforms better and it is just so much nicer to wear. So yeah, that is a trade-off, but I think it's one that I can maybe accept. The case is nice too. An ideal size for my 6-inch wrist, as we get no overhangs and it sits really nice and flush. I'm going to put this out there as well. This is the most comfortable Pagani I have worn to date. I've had quite a few of their watches and this is the most comfortable by far. It's just about thin enough to slip under a cuff too, and the weight is so well balanced as well. It is such a pleasure to wear, and that's the honest truth. I mean, yeah, the bracelet does take a big hit in quality, as in the build, but the comfort does increase somewhat because of it. It's really strange, but it's just how it's panned out. So final talk, and we land straight at the Lume, and this is usually where every Pagani falls flat on its face, and this time the story is pretty much the same. The innerseams seem to be pretty solid, and they are fairly bright, and they do last longer than the hands, which you can guess is the problem here. They're just not very good, and they don't match the indices. So it's typical Pagani, really. It's got a good initial brightness, but it doesn't have any staying power. So yeah, it's closer, it's getting better, but it's still, Pagani and pretty mediocre. It is what it is at this point. I guess we're just going to have to accept it. Yeah. All in all, anyway, it's a solid offering, if a little bit overpriced. At near on £100 retail, it's actually currently closer to 80 in the sales. I think it does have some real good points. I mean, the dial, case, finishing on the case and everything for the most part is really good. The comfort is excellent as well, though that is let down by the subpar Lume, and of course the bracelet quality issues, not the comfort issues. So, I mean, we've all seen these from other Paganis I've reviewed on the channel. They're a real mixed bag of good and bad. Maybe one day they'll actually, you know, get everything just a little bit better. We can hope, but yeah, you know, it's not happening anytime soon, unfortunately. But as I was really looking forward to this one, I think I've sort of built it up a little bit too much, and it was quickly dampened like our summers. So yeah, it is, like I said, the sale price I think is a little bit more acceptable. Full retail, I'm thinking it's a little bit too much, especially as it has such a strong contender from a close rival, which is about the same price as this one as well. So it's a tough call. Solid in places, not so much in others. It's Pagani. Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any uploads. And of course, follow me on social media at Mr. Budget Watch. Thanks again. I'll see you soon.